Lights, camera, action. The long-awaited sequel to Avatar has finally hit theaters 13 years. Can you believe that? 13 years after the release of its predecessor.
Yeah, the movie opened to massive audiences this past weekend, but it actually underperformed expectations. Avatar: The Way of Water raked in roughly $134 million in North America and $300 million internationally during its opening weekend. But many were expecting a domestic debut of at least $150 to $175 million for the big budget tentpole. Director James Cameron himself had said that the film would have to become one of the highest earning in history just to break even.
Joining us now is Erik Davis. He is the managing director at Fandango. All right, Erik, how surprising is it to have this underperformance of Avatar?
Well, I would also argue that maybe it didn't underperform. You know, as we sit here right now, it's over 600 million globally. It hasn't even gotten to the second weekend yet. And if you zoom out of that opening weekend, it is the third highest global debut in the pandemic era. It's number one for a non-superhero film. So this film did have a very big opening. And keep in mind, the first Avatar grossed $2.1 billion internationally. So this film is going to make most of its money across the seas. And especially in China, you know, I think because of the COVID situation there right now, it didn't open as high as it could have in China. But pay attention to China. I think China is going to be instrumental in terms of the success of this film.
Erik, I was going to say, do we have to start sort of rethinking how we look at opening weekends and numbers as a whole because of COVID? And, you know, we always just talk about that opening weekend, but we just maybe have to scale things a little differently then?
Yeah, I think so, especially with a film like Avatar. You know, this isn't a superhero movie, so it doesn't have like a bunch of Easter eggs and cameos that really force people to go see it immediately opening weekend so they're not spoiled. Right. This is the kind of movie that people can wait to go see. They can go see it at the theater in the format that they choose. A lot of people waiting for the Christmas season to go see it with their families. Yeah. And so, yeah, I do think we have to pay less attention to the opening weekend.
And, you know, Cameron is known for making these big budget films, and people are always like, I don't know if it's going to make money back, and then he does. All right. So, Erik, let's talk about some of the other highly anticipated movies coming out between now and mid-January. There's a whole bunch of us, actually, on a whole bunch of them on the wall behind us: Puss in Boots, Babylon, I Want to Dance with Somebody, as well as A Man Called Otto, which I have heard is excellent. Which ones would you recommend? Which ones do you expect are going to perform really well?
I would say Puss in Boots: The Last Wish probably has the best chance at performing higher than the other ones. I was just speaking to a neighbor of mine who says, where are the family movies? And I said, don't worry, Puss in Boots is coming out. So look for that film. It's also got the highest Rotten Tomatoes score of any of those films at 96% fresh. Other than Puss in Boots, you know, Babylon is a fun movie. It is chaotic. It is super R-rated. Keep that in mind.
Super R-rated.
Great cast, though. Great cast.
Great cast. A lot of fun. It speaks to this era in Hollywood, transitioning from the silent film to the talkies, that we don't see a lot of films cover that topic. And Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, just big, crazy, magnificent filmmaking on display here. A little messy, but definitely worth watching without a doubt. I like that one. And A Man Called Otto, honestly, one of my favorite films of the year, a real surprise for me. My wife and I were in tears after this film. Tom Hanks is really exceptional as like a grumpy old man who's, you know, mourning the loss of his wife. And then this other family moves in next door and they become friends. So a really lovely film, a real feel-good movie. That's one that you can totally go see it with the whole family and just bring your tissues.
Well, as a child of the 80s, I Want to Dance with Somebody is a must-see on my list, too, I have to say. And I have found myself not going to the theaters often. I've streamed a lot more. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's where I want to go next because there are options on streaming. I know Paramount Plus has Top Gun Maverick out there. How is this factoring into some of these holiday releases, the streaming component?
Well, what's interesting is some of the films that we're seeing on streaming were recently out in theaters. And so, Top Gun Maverick being the exception, that came out Memorial Day weekend, but it is now available this week at home via Paramount Plus. Also, I would think about films like Glass Onion, that Knives Out sequel, that's arriving at home on Netflix. Yeah, and then Violent Night, which was just in theaters with David Harbour, which is super fun. It's like Die Hard meets Home Alone. That is now available to watch at home too. So yeah, some recent releases, a lot quicker to the home than maybe we've seen in years past.
Die Hard and Home Alone, two holiday movies that I know are in regular rotation for a lot of people at this time of year. Eric, I'm just wondering, before we let you go, any of your favorite holiday-themed movies that are your personal favorites that you recommend? Anything new coming out, or is it really best to stick with the old favorites?
Yeah, I would say Violent Night is really the newest film that's out there and my favorite holiday movie of 2022 for sure. But then also, yeah, I like the old stuff. I'm a big fan of Elf with Will Ferrell.
Yes.
It really does remind you of the holiday season, the spirit of the season, of being kind to people and being thankful for the people in your life. So I really like that film. But then also National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is like a relatable one for me. This is the one that, like, I'm a dad. I know what it's like trying to put the lights up. My lights just went out on my house and I'm freaking out, like, figuring out how to fix them. So this one is like the one that relates to the most people because, dealing with our family, dealing with the chaos of the holidays is also part of the holiday season. So somewhere in the middle of Elf and Christmas Vacation is where I like to live.
Santa, I know him.
Everybody can relate. I got to say this. So Miracle on 34th Street, 75th anniversary this year. And Saturday on our show on CBS Saturday morning, we're going to take a look at some of the behind the scenes because I can't believe that movie, 75 years later, we still find ourselves watching. And I always say, I'm not going to watch it. It's corny. And then I watch it every year.
I get all emotional.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Erik Davis, so nice to talk movies with you. Thanks.
Thanks so much.